Believe it or not, there are 3 common reasons that a story will be analysed among others, as opposed to being analysed on its own. And each of the stories we discuss today will be an example of one of each of the 3 reasons. So let's get into our first story, Storage Closet. A story you can find at the beginning of episode 8 and is based on the manga's 71st chapter. Storage Closet became a lightning analysis simply because it barely has anything to say that hasn't been said in more interesting ways. The only thing I can really say about Storage Closet is that it's the very embodiment of the trope that I borderline refused to delve into in Camping Trip. The trope that Nishikata has a plan to beat Takagi, and that the plan backfires in some way. This trope has been present ever since Eraser in Season 1. And you could argue that this use of the trope is one of its blandest. Eraser's use of the trope was interesting because it served as an introduction, and the backfiring itself was prepared ahead of time. Two Choice Question uses the trope better by forcing Nishikata into a situation where he has to open up. Even Appearance, a story that was relegated to a lightning analysis for the exact same reason as Storage Closet, gave us some catharsis in watching Nishikata squirm, and implicitly sets up the events for Worries. I suppose another point worth mentioning is that it continues the new trend of Nishikata understanding how other people view his relationship with Takagi. He is made to hurry up by Takagi implying that rumours could be started, but again, the track walking segment and the pre-folk dance chat from Camping Trip used this trope better by contrasting itself with Nishikata's previous experiences and showing us the reactions of his friends, respectively. If it sounds like I hate Storage Closet, I don't. I may object to the framing of some of the shots and find it boring from an analytical perspective, but the worst I can say about this story is that it's slightly bland, and that's far more than I can say for the best scenes of other, lesser anime. Only other thing worth mentioning is that it deviates from the source material by setting up the injury that would go on to justify Nurse's Office. Speaking of which, our next story is Nurse's Office, a more meaty story you can find in episode 8 from around 7 minutes and 40 seconds, and is based on the manga's 68th chapter. The reason this story is in a lightning analysis, despite having so much to talk about, is that all the points worth making are disconnected from each other, therefore better suited to this rapid-fire format. The first thing worth bringing up is that this is a moment where Takagi uses her teasing to encourage positive behaviours from Nishikata, similar to what happened in Textbook, albeit more explicit. Had Takagi not gotten involved, Nishikata probably would have ignored his injury for as long as he could have, but with Takagi accusing him of being scared of antiseptic, he does the right thing and goes to get it treated right away, even if it's for the wrong reason. But on that note, a relatively recent chapter in the manga, chapter 115, Sunset, shows us that Nishikata continued to jog after training for the marathon. While the manga and anime are different continuities, if Sunset is anything to go by, it suggests that even if Nishikata begins these practices for the wrong reasons, they eventually become habits that he continues doing for the sake of it. Another interesting factor of this first interaction is Takagi's attitude towards Nishikata's injury compared to similar scenes in Water Tap and Skipping Stones. In these aforementioned scenes, the injury came about in an attempt to help Takagi, whereas the injury in Storage Closet came about for the opposite reason. Nishikata was quickly trying to clean so that he could get away from Takagi in order to prevent rumours. Misfortune stemmed from Nishikata's fear of how other people will perceive his relationship with Takagi, but we won't see that again. Despite not having the concern she did in Water Tap and Skipping Stones, she still tries to help Nishikata. This means if Nishikata is hurt, Takagi will do what she can to help him as an absolute minimum, showing a level of care for him that he seemingly understands by the end of this story. Speaking of callbacks to Skipping Stones, we get another after the antiseptic is applied and the Don't Say Itai game is settled. When Takagi wonders aloud what the punishment should be, she says that the game she pitched all the way back in episode 1 is still valid. If you can hold my hand, you win. If you recall, back in Skipping Stones, Nishikata said no to this game outright, but in this scene he silently contemplates, until he ever so slightly moves his hand. Could he have just attempted to win the game? Well, we will never know because Takagi diffuses the situation. Remember what I said about Takagi being vulnerable to intimacy? Well, it could be argued that at this point in time, she isn't actually ready to hold hands with Nishikata, which is why she distracts him from the game right after his hand moves. Following this, he fights through his embarrassment to thank her, just like he had done in Sneeze, showing us that in a fully conscious way, he is beginning to see her as more than a rival. Lastly, we have Acchi Muite Hoi, I know for a fact I'm pronouncing that wrong, a story you can find at the beginning of episode 9 and is based on the manga's 82nd chapter. This story is relegated to lightning analysis because while it does have a point to make, a very interesting one at that, it is very quickly explained, especially given that it more or less confirms something that I've been saying about the series since near the beginning. Nishikata does like Takagi, but his adolescent mind cannot comprehend those feelings, so he only likes her subconsciously. This story sets up that a way to win Acchi Muite Hoi is to ask your opponent a question and that their body will always respond honestly. Nishikata confirms that this is true for him by nodding when he is asked about liking 100% unrequited love. When Takagi asks Nishikata if he likes her, his head begins to go down, almost as if he is about to nod. He wonders if this means that he likes Takagi, but just like he did in questions, he dives back into his comfort zone, tells himself to not get distracted, and to instead focus on winning the game. There are a few interpretations that you could apply to Takagi's victory in this story, but the one I lean towards is that she set up the game so that Nishikata was encouraged to nod, to imply that he liked her. When he loses, she says that he would have won if he had just looked down. Nishikata says that he would have won looking left or right as well, but Takagi seemingly dismisses this. What Takagi is trying to communicate to Nishikata in this scene is that had he admitted to liking her, even implicitly, he would have won. Nishikata may imply that this is the kind of game he doesn't want to win, but as you know, he won't be believing that for much longer. And that is it for this analysis. Thank you to Orion Tran and Quincy Chamberlain for supporting me on Patreon. If you would like to join Orion and Quincy or join the Discord server, you can do so via links in the description. If you would like to see the outtakes for this video, you can find them on my Patreon or on the Discord server for free. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.